Hello, everybody. Yeah, I am live. All right. Hi, guys. I'm Philippa Ballette from Chris and Philly Functional Medicine, and we're going to do a little live today all about poo because I love poo. Now, for anyone who is new to poo and why poo is so important, music is really loud, isn't it? And I don't know if you can actually hear me. So we're going to be looking at a complete microbiome analysis stool test, and I love lab testing, and I wanted to show you guys from time to time some of the most common lab testing that we do, why it's important, what can be found, and how it could actually affect your health and even your happiness and the way that you interact with your kids and your partner and your family. So I am going to screen share this. All right. So this is a complete microbiome mapping test. Now, if anyone jumps on live, very welcome to write any questions or comments in the comments below. I can see those popping up. So if you do have any questions, as I'm going through this, pop them in there. I may answer them, in real time as you answer them. Otherwise, I might look back at the end and, I wanted to leave a little bit of time for Q&A specific to the stool test, but also anything gut related that you guys want to know about. So we do quite a few different types of testing for the gut, but this is a common test that I do that I really love, that will show quite a few different imbalances in the gut that can affect your health. So some of the common symptoms that I would see if someone has gut issues is, of course, gut issues. So things like bloating, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation. Often people have have been labeled with IBS, or you might even have Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. Now, there's always reasons why these things are an issue, and the GP tests and, even doing colonoscopies and endoscopies, while they're all really great to do and they can rule out nasty diseases and can rule out things like cancer and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not saying don't do them. I think it's really important to do them, but often they miss a whole host of other functional imbalances that can cause gut issues. So obviously, if your gut is out of whack, you can get gut issues, but sometimes too, people don't actually have any gut issues, yet poor gut health can lead to things like fatigue, poor energy, brain fog, mental health issues like anxiety and depression. What are some other things that clinically we've seen? A lot of people with emotional eating or food addictions, or even food disorders, eating disorders, often have imbalances in the gut. Low immunity is a big one. That was a big one for me. After I had my first baby, I was on antibiotics for about 4 months straight, and that just ruined my gut health. And I had so many chronic colds and flus and infections for many, many years, actually, until I actually got on top of my gut health. Also, aches and pains. There's a lot of research to show that these aches and pains and these musculoskeletal type issues can actually come back to poor gut health. So pretty much any symptom or disease could be coming back to poor gut health, skin issues as well. And this is where people get stuck as well, where they're like, but I feel like I've done everything I can with food. I'm eating really healthy. I'm trying to manage my stress and sleep well. Why are my issues still not getting better or completely resolving? And it's often because people have underlying hidden issues in their gut that have never been tested or have never been addressed properly or at all. So let's have a look here. So the first section of this test really looks at what your poo looks like. So we want to assess if the color is normal, if the form is normal. So if your poo is coming up as really light or mustardy colored, that's often a sign that you've got some fat malabsorption type issues. Also too, if your stool form is super runny or super hard, then obviously that's a sign that you've got constipation or diarrhea. We need to dig a bit deeper and find out what's going on. Now, looking at mucus and blood, especially the blood side of things, that is not something that I want to see in a stool test. So that can actually be a sign that you may have something like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, or, it could be an ulcer or even a cancerous tumor. Not to freak anyone out, especially clients of mine where we have done this stool test. Sometimes it can be quite benign. It might actually just be that you've had some tearing in your anus after you've gone to the toilet and you've pushed too hard. Like when you wipe your butt and you get a bit of blood on the old toilet paper. Sometimes it's just because of that, or it might be because of hemorrhoids. But I'm always thinking we want to rule out big nasty stuff. So if I see that, it's usually a referral to a GP, and let's just double check that it's nothing sinister. So then this next section here, the GIT functional markers. So these are now looking more at your gut lining, your immune system, your digestive organs, because all of these things can lead to health issues if they're not functioning very well. So calprotectin is a marker that we use to look to see how inflamed the bowel is. So if there's a lot of inflammation in the gut, that marker will come up super high. On this test, you can see it's 4.4, so it's nice and lovely. But again, I want to find out, why is there so much inflammation in the gut? Is it because of a nasty pathogen? Is it because of like the food that you're eating? Often and sometimes it's more because of, something more sinister like Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. Pancreatic elastase is a digestive enzyme, a marker. So your pancreas produces these enzymes to help break down foods and do all sorts of wonderful things. Sometimes that can come up really low, and that is often, people who often have that do have a lot of digestive issues where they're just not breaking down food properly. They feel really full after they eat. They feel bloating. They can feel pain. And if you're not breaking down your foods properly, you're not going to be absorbing nutrients properly, which means that you can, sorry, I just had a little comment pop up, which means that you might not actually be supporting these other body systems like, your brain or your adrenal glands or your female hormones. If you're not getting those nutrients in to support those areas, that's where you can start getting those other issues like PMS, infertility, anxiety, depression, that sort of stuff. Fecal Secretaryiga. So this is actually a marker all about your immune system in your gut lining and also in all your soft mucosal tissues. So that's like the vagina, that's your sinuses, that's your lungs, that's your throat. If that's really low, it's okay on this test. I would like to see it a bit higher, maybe around about there. But if that's really low, it just means over time your immune system has just bummed out, which can lead to, chronic infections of both the gut and also, chronic infections of maybe vaginal thrush type infections or sinus infections. Sometimes too, that secretary IgA comes up really high, and that just means that your immune system is working in overtime trying to fight off something nasty. And so again, put the detective hat on. What is it trying to fight off? Is there something else going on? Maybe there's a nasty pathogen in the gut it's trying to fight against. Maybe it might be a food allergy or a really severe food intolerance that the immune system is going haywire over. Fecal zonulin. So this is all about leaky gut or intestinal permeability. So this is where the gut lining starts to separate, and that can be really nasty. So that one, it can mean that there's kind of like this open wound. The gut lining is very raw, so that when you eat food, digest food, it can just be a really painful experience from a digestive perspective. But the thing with leaky gut is that it can also allow food particles and pathogens and toxins to enter the bloodstream when it's not supposed to. And that is like danger. So if you've got these foreign particles hanging around in your blood, your immune system, in your bloodstream are actually going to attack those particles, which will cause inflammation. And so that's where people can get these more non-gut related symptoms like, the anxiety, the brain fog, feeling irritable. It can often lead to chronic pain, fibromyalgia type stuff. It can also lead to autoimmune conditions as well, because your immune system is constantly working in overtime. So on this test, you can see it's borderline high. I would probably be treating that. If it's anything in this red range up here, definitely you need some help to support the healing of your gut lining. Also, another thing that will damage the gut lining is stress. So chronic stress can literally tear away at the muscle tissue in your gut lining. So cortisol like literally does that. And you know, sometimes it's nothing to do with what you're eating or even the nasty bugs in your gut. It's all to do with the amount of stress and overwhelm you're experiencing, which can lead to other issues. Fecal B Glocaronidae. So this is a marker that relates to your detox pathway. So your liver should work through toxins and excess hormones, and then those toxins and excess hormones dump back through the gallbladder, through the bile, and into the small intestine. Then from there, you should be able to poo out these toxins and excess hormones. But what can happen is sometimes you can have a bacterial overgrowth that overgrows in your system. And so if this marker was very high, that would mean, and it is borderline high there, that would mean that you've got this overgrowth of bacteria that is actually clinging onto your toxins and hormones and reabsorbing it back into the system so that you're never able to fully clear those toxins. So you can imagine how sick and inflamed you could become and toxic you would become very quickly if you're already getting all these environmental toxins into your system and you're not really clearing them very effectively. Also too, so often women especially produce an excess of estrogen, which is normal, and you should be able to clear it out through your detox pathways, through your poo, sweat, and wee. But if this marker is high, it means that that estrogen just isn't clearing from your system very well. And so that's where women can become estrogen dominant, and it can lead to things like fertility issues or cycle issues or PMS or really painful periods or even things like endometriosis or PCOS. And mamas out there, you know that if you're suffering any of those, especially like PMS or really painful periods, you just become a dragon mum. So, and sometimes it's all coming back to this bacteria in your gut and you're not able to clear toxins and estrogen from your system. The steatocrit, so this is fat malabsorption. So this is all about the gallbladder and your bile production and how you're actually able to break down fats from the food that you're eating and then absorb those fats. So if you're not absorbing those, your hormones are going to go unnourished. Your skin can become really dull, and also too, it often leads to things like diarrhea because that fat is just racing through your system rather than being absorbed. It can also, I'll talk about, I won't get into too much detail. I'm not going to talk about what I was going to talk about. Okay, so anti-Gliadin IgA. So this is a gluten marker. It is a similar marker to what a GP might look at if you're trying to be diagnosed for celiac disease. So this is an allergy marker towards gluten. So if this one's coming up high, it means that you're actually allergic to gluten and that gluten is causing a lot of health issues. And I've had people with celiac disease who had given up gluten 10 years ago and, you know, they got better, but they still had lingering issues. They had fatigue or anxiety or, you know, their gut just never was quite right after going gluten-free. When we've done this test, this marker has actually been quite high. So it meant that they were still eating gluten in some form. Now, they probably didn't intentionally know that they were, but they were getting some sort of traces and their body was just constantly fighting against this gluten, causing a lot of inflammation and damage and symptoms. So, and also sometimes I've had people too who they're like, oh, I've been tested for celiac with the GP and nothing came up, but we do this test and it's a lot more sensitive. So it can pick up non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And when you know you have that and you give up gluten, your life will change. I promise you. Okay, I'm going to look at these 3 sections on the next page. I'm not going to go over every single marker, but I really wanted to look a bit more in detail at these ones because they were relating to all different types of GI organs. Now the rest of the test is really just looking at, it's looking at the nasty bugs and the good bugs in your system. So here we can have a look at all the different parasites and all the different worms that can cause us issues. People always freak out a bit when we find some worms or some parasites because it's kind of like sounds a bit gross. Now, some of these things can be benign. So again, as a clinician, we sort of look at the client's case history, symptoms, and decide whether these need to be treated or not. But other times they can cause big issues. And parasites and worms, they eat your food. So you can constantly feel hungry all the time. It also means that you can be nutrient depleted because you're just not getting the nutrients fully from the food that you're eating. They can cause and have been linked to a lot of gut issues as well. So things like, diarrhea is a big one, abdominal cramping, pain. Especially, there's some really nasty ones like Giardia is just one parasite that you want to get rid of because it literally rips away at your gut lining and causes all sorts of issues. Now on this next section here, so this is opportunistic bacteria. So all of these bugs, again, I won't go through every single one, but all of these bugs are part of your normal flora. So they're not necessarily bad, but they've been shown by research that if they overgrow, that they can become pathogenic and they can cause gut issues. So some, like specifically as well, Streptococcus, Staphylococcus definitely can cause sort of like IBS type symptoms. Methanobacteriaceae species and also the D-sulfibrio species, they actually, the methane one slows down transit time. So I find that a lot of people with chronic constipation have an overgrowth of the methane species, and you can see here that this is borderline high. Often I don't see it super high, but even at this borderline level, it's like, man, when we get rid of that methane and we kind of restore the microbiome, people are pooping so much better, and it's very exciting to see. These ones here, potential autoimmune triggers. So again, there has been research to show that things like Citrobacter, which shouldn't be higher than 5, but in this test it's at 167, has been linked to autoimmune conditions like fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis. It could even be flaring and causing up things like Hashimoto's disease, lupus, all of those things. So although they're part of the normal flora, they can be quite nasty and dangerous if they're left to overgrow. Fungi and yeast. So Candida species is probably a fungi species that a lot of people have heard about. And again, all of these ones are part of the normal flora. So it's not necessarily like they're bad. We actually need small amounts for a healthy microbiome, but they're very opportunistic. So yeast will overgrow really quickly. They love to eat sugar too. So if you're kind of like, kids are going to bed, pull out the chocolate, having the afternoon slump at work, pull out the chocolate, the lollies to pep you up, or the energy drinks, you're probably feeding your candida. And it's probably overgrowing, and it's probably making you feel worse in terms of fatigue and brain fog, and it's been linked to mental health issues. It's been linked to female hormone issues. It definitely can also cause a lot of gut issues. So that's that one. Then we've got bacterial pathogens. So these are all not part of the normal flora. So all the other ones were, but that's why they're called pathogens, because they don't actually exist or shouldn't exist in our gut. Now, again, some of these things can probably be there in smaller amounts and they might not cause a lot of issues, but that's again where we would look at the case history, the symptoms, and decide whether we need to kill it or not. So one that's showing up here, Helicobacter pylori. Now I had this nasty little guy that is really high on this test, 56. I had heartburn, I don't know. I don't even know when it began. It probably as an early teenager or maybe like later in my teenage years, but I actually thought it was a normal thing to feel, and everyone felt that when they ate food, that you just feel like that fire and sort of like indigestion and sometimes like spew up a little bit of reflux. I actually thought that was a normal thing until maybe 5-10 years later I realized that it wasn't normal. And then anyway, when I went and did all my functional medicine lab testing and I was working with my mentor, Dr. Kalish, I was so excited to find H. pylori because it has been linked to causing heartburn and reflux. Can cause a lot of other issues too, but when that one was eradicated, I was finally able to start healing my gut and the heartburn got so much better. So that was super exciting. I've had other people too, though, like H. pylori can just cause a lot of IBS, sort of like, irritable bowel syndrome type issues. Also had some people, I had a lady who used to get a really bad rash all over her body and a lot of allergies. And it wasn't until we cleared that H. pylori that her skin and her allergies actually cleared up. So sometimes it's not gut related, it's like causing other issues. So the viral pathogens here, to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever seen these pop up in a stool test before, but they can certainly cause things like gastro and, that sort of stuff if it's a viral bug, but rarely do we see that. And then these last two sections here are all about your normal bacterial gut flora and all about your good, healthy bugs. So again, all of these so important to help with your immune system, to help keep your gut lining and your mucosal lining nice and strong. It helps to convert food into like absorbable and usable nutrients for the body. If you search in PubMed and search like PubMed microbiome, there are so many different research articles now. Like every week we're learning more and more things about the amazing health benefits of the normal bacteria. In fact, we would be dead if we didn't have this flora in our gut. Now, it's really common, so common to see a trend of all these bacteria low. Look, I'd probably say 95% of the people that we test, it looks something like this, usually worse. I shouldn't laugh. That's not a good thing. But it is just so common because we live in a world that is very stressful. It's very toxic. People are sleep deprived. Most people aren't eating, foods that actually nourish and support the beneficial bacteria. Even if you eat healthy now, you probably didn't in the past. I grew up on Wheat Bix and honey sandwiches and more bread for dinner. We also had a beautiful vegetable garden as well. So thanks, Mum and Dad, for that. But generally, kind of just eating a processed diet, which can really kill off your beneficial bacteria. And also, if you're someone who's struggled with gut issues for a really long time and you're on a really restricted diet because you're just so reactive to so many foods, even things like paleo dieting, keto dieting. Now, nothing against those diets, but they do take out a lot of fiber and they take out a lot of the fermentable carbohydrates that your beneficial bacteria thrive on. And so again, this can be a reason why beneficial bacteria are really low. And also antibiotics. So many people, maybe even if you're a bit more health conscious now, you try not to use them now, but in the past, a lot of people have this history of reoccurring use of antibiotics. Even the hand sanitizers we're all using for COVID-19 kill off bacteria. So the stuff that we put on our skin, although it's on our skin, it will affect our beneficial bacteria. So that's why it's really common to see that not many people have a very healthy and happy microbiome. So they're all the markers. There's so many there. Didn't go into great detail with every single one of them because I know that will be a really long live. But if anyone is watching and they have any questions, you're welcome to pop them into the comment section, or if you're listening back to this, pop them in the comment section as well. I'm happy to answer questions. And also if there's like some really specific questions that may require a bit more of a detailed answer, I'm happy to do another video as well because I love this stuff. Alrighty, so I am going to head now, and thank you so much everybody for listening. Oh, gonna unscreen share that? Nah. Ooh. Okay. I'm not really great with pressing buttons and trying to make it look pretty, but anyway, all right, I'm gonna go. I'll stop babbling. If you want more information about this, please feel free to comment below, send me a direct message. If you'd like to know what's wrong with you, then we would love to have a chat. So anyway, see ya.